they're all people who've been there before.
Yeah.
So
it's when I was talking to some other arts providers, and the big question was somebody equated it to when newspapers started taking their content online. And there was a big debate whether people were going to pay for things where a lot of other organizations were doing it for free. So if you follow like New York Times or Washington Post or the larger international ones, then New York Times especially started experimenting with having people pay for access or not. And a lot of the smaller organizations, smaller newspapers and everything, some of them went out of business, but some of them, are trying to experiment with ads and everything. But most of the arts providers are trying to figure out what happens now, because a lot of people are providing content for free. And if you have Yo-Yo Ma, he gave a recital for free. Who's gonna, attend people that are not as well, or that are not household names. So I'm curious how people are going to manage with online content.
Well, the Met Opera, as you know, they've been doing the Saturday morning, concerts. They're doing them all over the world, very high tech, microphones, et cetera, and they're charging $20. So
yeah, but they
all seem to have decided that's kind of a price point that people will pay.
Yeah, which means that people that are not Met Opera have to pay less. I mean, have to charge less. But also, the Met Opera is not paying any musician for the entirety of the year. They basically.
I know, it's unbelievable.
Which is only one of 3 orchestras I know that are not paying anything. The other one being Nashville Symphony, and the third one being Indianapolis Symphony. The ones are the big ones. Everywhere else is trying to help their musicians, but the Met Opera, Nashville, and Indianapolis are the 3 relatively big ones. That's pretty tough. Even the San Francisco Opera, I think San Francisco Opera is having no performances, using the musicians, but they're still paying them 50%.
Wow.
Pretty, which is okay.
And benefits, I believe.
Government funding in the spring, summer, they actually got paid close to 100%, which is good. But a lot of the contractors obviously don't get paid. So I'll be back in a second.
I submitted my recording for the Steelway, but I couldn't tell whether or not it uploaded. So I sent an email to the tech people, and I didn't hear back from them. So would they be able to tell if it actually uploaded?
Yes. Helen, do you know anything about that?
No, I'm not getting. I wonder if I got left off the Ave Geek group, but I'm not getting any of the email. So I will check if I can.
Yeah, that's the second thing I've got where people haven't got back to folks. So we need.
So I haven't. I didn't get an email about it.
Requests for help are going to Ave Help.
Yeah, Ave Help. I mean, yeah.
And that at the moment only goes to David Flack and me, and we're triaging the things.
Oh, okay. So that's why I didn't get it. Okay.
Very quick.
But Becky, unless you sent it in the last half hour, I haven't seen an email come in from you.
Hey.
Issue.
Really? It was just.
I got a quick, helpful response. Thank you, guys.
Good.
I haven't tried it yet, but thanks for the quick response.
Oh, good, because I probably can't help anyway.
But Becky,
you're a great help, Ellen.
I followed the directions exactly.
Oh, you did it, Ruth. Great. I'm so happy.
But when I clicked on
or I learned how. I haven't done it.
So Becky, I haven't done this one yet, but the last time there was no confirmation that you had submitted it. But since I saw my face in the final recording, obviously it went in.
I understand that, but my problem is that the computer did not respond when I clicked on the upload button. Did not appear to be.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why that is.
There's Ruth.
So I thought maybe it went and I just didn't notice, but I don't think so. I think it didn't upload, and so that's really my question to Ave. Why didn't it upload?
I'll note that, and we'll get you an answer, Becky. I'm
Thanks.
sure we can determine whether it got in.
Yeah, I was going to do it today, but it was too hot.
Me
That was
too.
my excuse.
Me too. I started, it's so low for me. All these things are low and slow for me. And I started and I thought, oh my God,
Be
too
the
hot.
soprano. You don't have
Too
to do the
hot to do
alto.
anything
I'm a
today.
fallen soprano.
Yeah, well, be one. Be a
Oh, you mean just for this?
Yeah,
Is
you
it
can sing the
Candy Crush
soprano.
Deluxe?
There's
Oh,
no rule.
I don't think it matters.
no,
In
it doesn't.
fact, that
Soprano twos, please.
Christian, did you get the inquiry about the singer who submitted 2 and the
Yes.
second one wouldn't load up?
Yes, we're in search
I
of
didn't
someone
have time.
yes, people are being canvassed to answer that question.
Cool.
Okay, let's get started. It is 7:02 on a Monday, so we are.
I'm going to mute everybody then briefly.
And so this is Monday, of course, and we are back at BCCO. It's good to see everybody. We're going to have something a little different than we normally do actually in BCCO rehearsals. And that is that as part of this exploration of Fauré and his life and his music, we're going to, again, like in the first rehearsal I talked about, sort of deep dive into what it really means to be like French, what it means to be singing lyrical music, music that is much less vertical, but much more horizontal. And as a result, we're going to be visiting other pieces along the way. And so we're actually going to be starting with the warm-up, after the warm-up. But after the warm-up, we're actually going to be starting to look through one other piece that's notoriously connected with the Fauré Requiem, and that's actually the Duruflé Requiem. And so if you've been part of BCCO, Duruflé Requiem is a piece that we've sung together. But if you haven't, this is a piece that's very commonly compared to the Fauré Requiem because they feel like they have the same, they're very similar in some aspects of it, even though they were actually written quite a number of decades apart. The Fauré Requiem, of course, being in the 19th century, and the Duruflé Requiem is actually a contemporary piece. It's written in the middle of the 20th century. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit, and then we're going to be finishing off the first movement, going through some musical details, doing some rehearsal, looking at some of the notes, maybe having a sectional. It depends on how. I probably don't need a sectional on this, but and then we're going to sing through the first movement and then start looking at the second movement. And Julie and I are going to be tag teaming. I'm going to do the front half of the second movement and she'll be doing the second half of the second movement. But it should be a really interesting rehearsal because if you don't know the Duruflé, it's one of the most gorgeous pieces. And again, it's really based off this chant. And chant, of course, has no vertical goalposts. It's really, really flowing and horizontal. So with that, I'm going to actually pass it along to Julia to start our rehearsal with a warm-up first, and then we're going to dive into Duruflé first before we go into the Fauré.
Okay, so let's stand for our warm-up, always. It's good to get the blood flowing whenever we warm up and sing because your body is your instrument. So make sure that you have a nice, good posture. Your feet are underneath your hips. And you have a nice tall posture, so you feel like there is a string that is in the ground, like roots for you. You have roots, and they're coming. There's a string that's connecting from your roots up through your feet, through your legs, all the way up through your spine, and pulling out through your head, just keeping you nice and tall and aloft and nice and bright. And let's start with a quick stretch. So reach your arms up to the sky. Continuing the plant metaphor, we are a nice tall tree. And let's lean one way in the breeze, I suppose. And then the other way. And then come back to center and twist back and forth. And now, changing plant species, let's turn into a cactus with our arms coming parallel to the floor. And not only are we at our arms in this position, but we are leaning back slightly, only enough so that gravity will start to pull everything back for you. This is like my favorite stretch. This is why I do it every week. And let's bring our arms down, keeping your shoulders nice and tucked and kind of pulled back and together. And bring your head over to one side, relaxing your neck. And actively pull your opposite shoulder down. Just with your muscle, you don't necessarily have to add any extra weight on it, but you're just actively creating a really excellent stretch in your neck. And then release and roll your head over to the other side. And same thing, actively pulling your opposite shoulder down so you get an even more optimized stretch, an excellent stretch. And then come back up to center, roll your shoulders back, and then forward, and then just kind of shake it all out. Release all that tension that is like toxic to singers. Anytime you have tension anywhere in your body, it affects the way that you sing. So release it all. Just take all the tension of the day or the week or the weekend and just let it go. Take a nice deep breath and let all the tension go. One more deep breath and let it go. And now let's breathe in for 4 beats and then out for 4, focusing on nice, conscious, deep, expansive breaths that not only go into your belly, but also your sides and your back and your torso. So this entire canister of your torso should just expand everywhere, like you have an inner tube around you and you are trying to hold it up without your arms, but only just expanding your middle. Here we go. And breathe in and out. And in, and out, and in, and out. Great, so I love gallery view because I can see some of us, which is amazing, and I'm seeing a little bit of this. So I'm saying breathe in, and out, where we're relaxing our posture on the exhale. It's great if you keep a nice tall posture and try to breathe in this way because you're actually giving yourself more work to do when you relax your posture with each breath. You're creating that space again and then needing to breathe into it. So you're giving yourself 2 steps. It's a lot easier if you just keep a nice tall posture and breathe into this space and then out and keep this tall posture. Let's do 2 more. Ready, and breathe in and out. And in, and out. Excellent, better, excellent. And now we will take a breath on 1 beat and hiss out actively for 4 beats, and then take a breath and hiss out for 8 beats, and then 12, and then 16, and then 20, and we will get all the way finding that connection to your breath. So if you've ever heard the term sing on the breath, it's finding that connection and that breath support and using basically the feeling that you get when you hiss. Having that belly support is what we're talking about whenever you hear the phrase sing on the breath or anything like that. Here we go. Ready? Breathe in. Exhale. 8. Out. 12. Out. 16. Careful not to collapse as you hiss out. You keeping your nice tall posture. 9, 10, 11, 12. I forgot if I said 12 or 16. Here's 16, out. Anytime I try to talk in the middle of that, I always forget where we are. Let's try 20. Ready? And breathe in.
Unmute.
Woo! I think we normally pulse when we get to 20, so excellent if you made it through all the way to the end. Now, stay standing if you are still standing, and we'll start with lip trills. Breathe. Okay, and now we are going to pinch our nose and sing Z, or sorry, not Z, but Z, just an Z sound with your nose pinched. Z. And hopefully what this will do is build up that pressure in your sinus cavity and behind your mask. So you should feel that placement of that pressure of that breath when you sing. And that's a really great way to identify when we talk about placement, mask placement. You should be feeling that engagement right in here. So this exercise, if you haven't found that placement yet, this is a great exercise for that. So zzz the whole way, but with your nose plugged. Ready, and go. Excellent. Everyone just looks like there's a really bad smell in the house somewhere. I love that. Okay, now let's open it up and sing so. And really use your S to get you started so that you can ride the breath and sing on the breath, right? There's that phrase again. So that gets the breath going for you. Ready, and sing. Excellent. We're going to do a couple more of these. I see really beautiful vowels. Careful though that we're not dropping back whenever we sing an ah or an o vowel. It's easy to drop back so that it sounds oh, so that it has a dark and back placement. We still want that forward placement, so that buzz and that pressure that you felt in your mask during the zzz exercise. See if you can find that space now. So it's nice and forward. Here we go. Ready, and breathe. Last one. Great. And now for some more thoughtful and musical. Let's see if we can do the exercise that we've done previously. If this is still new to you, we're singing on an umlaut. So imagine that you have an E vowel in your mouth with your tongue, and then you have an oo vowel on top of that with your lips. So one easy way to find that is just to go make that transition from E, so that you're saying E with your tongue and then just closing your lips on top of it. E, and it's kind of finding that space. And the idea with this exercise is to make it more melodic, and imagine that you're singing the Requiem here. And we're not trying to punch the notes, but we're trying to sing legato, connect the notes, but also try not to make that top note pop out. So it's not like we just did in our last exercise, but so that there's breath connection and connection and legato between it. So let's practice that. Ready, breathe. Connect it. Use lots of breath for the high note. exercise of the day, we will sing our scales that we started last week. So, so a nice scale, spending a little bit more time on the tonic at the bottom and at the top, and then an arpeggio after that. While we're singing on the ah vowel, same thing that I mentioned before. See if you can keep that forward placement instead of falling back into the throat. Keep it nice and forward and bright as we sing this. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and okay, and now let's take a nice deep breath and do a siren from the top of our range down just to relax the vocal cords. Here we go, and with that, I will pass it back to Ming.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Christian, do you mind setting me up as a co-host?
You are, I believe.
Oh, I am already?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Like we were talking about, one of my favorite things during these virtual times now is actually to go do these virtual tours, because many museums are actually putting a lot of their contents online, and you can also visit churches, etc. And so, as we did 2 weeks ago, I want to remind you of what the L'Église de la Madeleine, where the Fauré Requiem was premiered, what it looks like. And so remember, this is just like beautiful, beautiful church. But it looks actually really grand right now. Maybe that's because I've been living in my like living room, which is obviously much smaller. But this is actually one of the smaller churches, and it is gorgeous. But if you can imagine the reverberations that are here, and the idea that chant was often sung in here and is sort of created to be sung in reverberant spaces like this. And so, you know, as you know, the Requiem, the text for the Requiem is from various times, some of it as old as the 6th century, some of it as, most of it, like the Dies Irae, from the 13th century, or 11th to 13th century. Not quite sure exactly when, but, you know, is from different areas and different parts of the Mass and different parts of the Requiem. But this idea of the chant was an important part of all of this time. And so I want to actually play for you what one of the original introit to a Requiem chant actually sounds like. And so this is going to be, you're going to actually just see the actual notation for the two, and it should show up on your screen. But if you can see this is actually what the musical notation looks like. And so it looks very foreign to us, but I don't know, can you see my mouse? Okay, so do you see this? This is the intro to the Requiem, of course. But this is actually the key signature, the clef. And so we talk about C clefs, and you know, there's soprano clefs, there's alto clefs, there's tenor clefs, bass clefs. Soprano clefs we don't use very much nowadays. Alto clefs we use all the time, but not in singing. We use them because violas use them. And then tenor clefs, we actually don't use them. Singers, tenors don't use them very typically, but they are used by bassoons and some other instruments as well. We all use bass clefs, of course, and we use oftentimes treble clef. But this is actually the C. So that notates actually where the C is. And then you see these notes over here. They actually, you'll see them as the melody goes along, but you can actually start to track them and start to make a little bit of a sense of how these notations are listed there. And so while it is a slightly unfamiliar notation. When you get used to it, it's just like reading notes as we do with our score, and it becomes much more easy to do. So I'm actually going to play a little bit of this first. Let me just close some of my things here so I can, here. And let me make sure, as always, that I'm sharing. Where is this? Come on, Zoom. Share computer sound. Here we go. So you see, it's very, very smooth singing. When you think about chant, it is the exact opposite. I consider this to be the exact opposite of beatboxing, right? Beatboxing is all about rhythm. It is all about sort of the words punctuating. And chant is exactly the opposite. Instead of rhythm, it's actually, rhythm is one of the least important things. It's about the flow. It's about the connection of the line. So when you talk about the differences between, let's say, Germanic and French music, you really are talking about how much emphasis there is on vertical music, like marches that have a definite downbeat, versus music that has sustain all the way through. And so it is something that is really, really nice. Now, Janet has this question. I wonder about manuscripts, and they're so big. Is it because there weren't a lot of copies, so so many singers would look at one manuscript? It was tedious, actually, to have multiple people, but we actually had fewer people actually looking at the music. There is one famous piece by Bach or Mozart. I think it's Bach, but either of them would play tricks like this, where you can actually read it. It's a duet. You place it on a coffee table, and one person reads it from one side, and the other person reads it from the other side of the music. And even though the staves are basically switched, the music actually accompanies itself. It's actually really beautiful. Yeah, it's either Mozart or Bach, so it's Mozart. But they were both wizards at things like that. There's this great book, Gödel Escher Bach, by Douglas Hofstadter, that won a Pulitzer, I think, and is absolutely brilliant, but it has all these mathematical, musical things like this. But in any case, I'm starting to digress a little bit. So I think you were all sent the music to the Duraflay Requiem, but I'm going to try something that I haven't been, I'm going to try something that I haven't done too much before. So if you bear with me, just in case, because it did come relatively soon. We didn't send it at the beginning of the rehearsals, but I'm going to actually try to put it on my screen while playing the music and not sharing the music. And so I'm just going to actually download this very quickly. But the Duraflay Requiem, if you have it, is based on that same melody. And so I'm going to download this and then open it. Great. And let's see. So if you want, I'm going to try to actually follow along like this. And you can see this, the music already is actually that same melody in the same key. for kicks, I want to actually start again from the beginning of this music, but actually play that original chant. And so follow along with this rhythm in the same exact key. Oops, I stopped the share, but I actually wanted to stop the music. So let me just share this again. But you can see actually that the music, he basically set the chant to a modern setting. And you see all these 16th notes. I'm going to try to read from this, but this is an organ, so it's not going to sound as abruptly. This is beautiful flowing melody that happens throughout, and it's hard to hear when you're singing along with it. But you see these running 16th notes in the orchestra, in the organ. It's always reaching, but it still has this sort of, not lugubrious because it's not too heavy, but it sort of has this very nice flowing character through it always. And then the sopranos and altos, when you come in, and this is not music of the chant, but you have da, 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 and they're so angelic. It's this gorgeous, gorgeous piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a stumble through, we would call it. And this is looking at the music. You can look at your screen, and we're going to actually just sing along with it. Pick your part. You can. This is Zoom. You can pick any part that you want to sing, even if you want to sing the orchestra part or the organ part here. So what we're going to do is we're going to play you through this movement. It's only 3 minutes long, about 3.5 minutes long. But the idea is to really tap into that feeling of endless breath, right? Even though you will have to take breath, that you want to have this really smooth character to it, and that there's rhythm is flexible. That the goal is not to be ta da 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 da, but that everything floats and is a little bit more supple, a little bit more flexible, a little bit easygoing. So let's try this. We're going to sing through a little bit of the Durflé Requiem. I think it was written in 1950. And if you think about the difference between the 4A, which was written in 1800s to 1950, this is after music had exploded with Stravinsky, with atonal music, 12-tone serial music. And then you get music like this. It has a very modern take, but it has roots in the original chant and connections to it. It's a very beautiful piece. So here is, let's read through this together.
Louder, please.
That's so soft. You know what? It's because I'm gonna have to, we might have to, I wonder if I can do a split screen. I don't know if I can do this. I think it's going to not allow me to do a louder version of this unless I'm sharing that directly. So you might have to go off of your music. Let's try this again. Just make sure. Ah, it's a beautiful piece. If you can hear, if you heard it, well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you heard it, but it is absolutely gorgeous piece. And this recording is with the Voices of Ascension, and the volume on that is really sort of indicative of the piece. Now, when we look at the first movement of the 4A, we're going to turn back to the 4A now. But when we look at the first movement of the 4A, the contrast and the dynamics look really severe. We're talking about that piano to fortissimo, these big swells that go back and forth. And in reality, it's very much exactly like the Durflé performance that we just heard here. There is a sort of a line that sort of dulls the sort of abruptness of the dynamic contrast like that. And so we really want to try to see if we can build in that suppleness, build in, even though the 4A is a little bit more rhythmic than the Durflé really feels like you're swimming along. When we get to the offertory in the second movement of the 4A that we're going to be looking at in just a little bit, it actually has much more of this chant quality. And so we're going to look forward to that in a little bit. But we want to actually go back to the 4A first movement and sort of look at the end of it, work backwards, and then sing through it again as a final concluding time to look at the first movement. But having that idea of sustain. So turn in your scores. Now that we all have measure numbers in, you should have measure numbers in. We're going to start from the very ending. And this is bar 81. And remember that what we're going to be doing is really making sure that the differences in the pitches towards the end, as we settle to this D, this low D, is going to be nice and sustained. So remember, versus and then the final N, and the final D, right? And so we want to get those together. Let's try this from bar 79. This is the orchestra alone, and then you come in 2 bars later. So this is 79. If you have letters, it's before K, 6 bars before K. So. Now the ritardando at the end is really hard to do when you don't have a conductor. So you have to use your ears. We're going to do it with a recording and I'll try to conduct it later on. Now the danger is when you have the E flats that everybody wants to go, son, it's E natural. And then they say, oh, I want to sing the E flat, son. And it becomes so flat that it actually becomes like a double flat or something crazy just out of tune. So make sure that it's completely in the pitch. It's in the chord. The chord changes. And so you have to really make sure. Now what I want to do is, let's do the same thing that we did before, but your natural tendency is going to decrescendo, is going to get softer because the music's getting softer. And what I want you to do is actually crescendo a tiny bit, especially as you change notes. And use your finger, and we're going to actually do this, and we're going to play this a little game on Zoom. Your game is for the entirety of the line to have your finger go across the screen. Stop, right? And see if you can get it to go there. Now that's going to represent how much we sustain the line, and we should see this really cute little thing with everybody doing their fingers across the screen, okay? So same place, 79, and we're going to start 2 bars before you sing, but I want you to think about crescendoing, and I want you to try to visually show the line across Zoom for everybody to see. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, off. And a 1, and it's still going. Oh. Right? Now, the cool thing about this is that you realize that those 3 lines are actually really different. Eleison, off. You have 5 beats. Eleison, off. But the next one, do you see that? Eleison. But you hold the last note this time 7 beats. So that's 10 beats. That's a full doubling of the phrase length. It's actually very different. One is actually eleison. The other one is half as fast. Eleison. And then when you get to the last one, it's not only 8 beats plus 3 quarter notes, like that's 11 beats so far, but then there's a fermata. And that fermata is another 4 beats. That happens to be 15 beats total, right? We can just double it, right? 15 beats total. 5 beats in the first one, 10 beats in the next one, something like 15 beats in the next one. So they're actually completely 3 different speeds. The music elongates. We talk about sometimes how composers write in retardandos and slowing down. This is something like that. So now, this time I don't want you to crescendo too much, but I want you to think about crescendoing so that the music doesn't go eleison, right? But eleison. That it has smoothness, it has evenness, and it is connected from note to note. And then just like your finger's not going to go eleison, but you really want eleison, off. Let's try that. 5 beat phrase, note, 10 beats, then 15 beats. Bar 79. 1. And a 1. 2, off. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And sustained. 4. And 1, 2, 3, off. Sustain, sustain. And just let the music dissipate, okay? This is exactly like the warm-ups we always do. Let's do out on sh for 7 beats, out on sh for 11 beats, out on sh for 15 beats. Very much the same, okay? Now let's look backwards. What we're gonna do is we're going to go, where does the section start? F. This is bar 50, 5-0, 5-0. Rehearsal E, sorry, it's actually rehearsal E because that's the one that gets cut off. But exaudi, orazione mea. And instead of a finger line across the screen, we're gonna do a crescendo decrescendo, okay? So we're gonna do a big circle. So you're gonna act like your fingers and hand is like a roller coaster. Exaudi, orazione me. So just like physics, when you go swinging down, you're going to get louder, but then it's going to come back up and you're going to be softer. So let's just try that speaking. We're going to go exaudi, orazione meam. Te, oh, and then you're going to keep your hand up like you're saying something very important. Te omnis caro veniet, omnis caro. Hand is up when it's soft. I'm sorry, at the very beginning, it's actually going to be down when it's loud, and then when you're going to maintain loud, you're going to hold it, okay? Let's try this speaking. So we're going to go 1 from bar 50, rehearsal E or F or whatever. It's actually a misprint. It's actually an E, but it got cut off by the other Fs. The other Fs were saying no. It's actually E in, but it's bar 50. So we're going to go exhale, D, exhale. So what we want to do is we're going to try to make sure that we don't go exhale, D, oracionem, but that there's continuousness, that there is continuity and connected singing when you transition from loud to soft. So let's try this together. I'm going to highlight Julia. And Julia's going to sort of conduct with her hands while I play. So that way I can actually play and she will conduct. This is hopefully. So let's try this together.
Well, conductor conduct or like the forte piano?
No, yes.
The circles.
You know, in choral conducting, we make fun of choral conductors because we use circles a lot. And so you will all be choral conductors. You will all have circles, and this will be your first choral conducting lesson of all the circles. Okay, so here we go. Just speaking, though I'm going to play the music. Julia's going to show where we should be on forte and piano. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. So I wasn't seeing how Julia did, but did she do a good job? Nod your head, shake your head if she did a terrible job. I'm sure she did a great job. She's normally really great at this. So this time, what I want you to do is when you speak it, when you sing it, I want you to feel like there's that swing, just like in the recording that you heard. When it was loud, it didn't become accented and aggressive. It was just fuller. And we want the music to sound like it just goes, like you just change the volume of the dial. It doesn't mean you change the articulation. So exaudi, orationem meam versus exaudi, oratio. So you see it's very different. Instead of being vertical, it is horizontal. It is smooth. So let's try this together, singing from the same place. I'm going to take you actually off of highlight because when you conduct rhythmically, it actually ends up not being together. So how do you, I can't unpin her for some reason. Julia. Okay, you're just going to have to stand there and vocalize for us. Okay, great. So I'm just going to play. Oh, there you go. Okay, great. Here we go. Remember, not exaudi, but exaudi, orationem. Basses, tenor 2, tenor 1, alto, soprano. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the page. Everybody turn the page. There you go. H, here we go. This is becoming a little stark. We didn't look at this too much yet, but when we get to bar 63, where we have the unison melody from the sopranos, altos, and tenors, There is no way, now that we've been talking about this so much, that you can have a break between each of these phrases. Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie eleison is the antithesis of what this music is about. So let's sing it. Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie eleison, with one breath and one continuous line. And so what ends up happening is, just like a piano, when you hit a note, we tend to decay from it. So when we talk about this crescendo, it's actually to counter our natural inclination to let off the sound a little bit before we change notes. So when you practice, you should actually think, I'm going to do a crescendo. Even though it doesn't have a crescendo there, and it would sound weird to do a crescendo if everybody heard it, it's actually to make the music more even. So for now, I really want you to think about crescendo. Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie eleison. And when you sing it together, all of a sudden it becomes this unbroken ribbon. Let's try that together. Bar 63. Basses, you should sing this too. Why not? All right, 1, 2, and da. Keep on going. Right? So then Tyler, Kyrie eleison, eleison, eleison. You should be like an opera singer. Opera singers hate to let go and breathe. They want to sustain every last inch of that note. You want the breath to not interrupt the music, even though there's a comma there for everybody. Let's try just the altos and sopranos right there. Just to get the smooth. Again, even though the contour of the music goes really high from really low, you want to think smooth across. Altos and sopranos. 1, 2, and da. Unlike the piano, which breaks up so much, maintain that smoothness. Basses and tenors now, your time. From bar 67. Nice little high C sharp there, okay? Basses and tenors. 1, 2, and da. Tenors. Eleison, da, 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 da. Now, the danger is to let go and make that crescendo a lot at that point. We want to be very even. So just like our natural tendency is a decrescendo when we sing long lines before we sing another note, our tendency when we go up is to crescendo a lot. So there, we don't actually have to think about crescendoing. You want to think about maintaining the nice even line. Let's do all 4 voice parts right there. Bar 67. Right? 1, 2, and da. Now, this next bar, bar 71. Christe, Christe. If we were to sing it, we would say, we're saying the same word twice, maybe there should be a little break. Christe, Christe. But again, we're singing French music, just like Durflé, with the 4A, it's going to be connected. Don't break those 2 lines up together. And then that decrescendo is important. Christe, Christe. I want you to really focus on the decrescendo that you have. Christe, Christe. And the way I think of it is just like you transition. Christe, Christe. Like you're just sliding down a hill into a lower dynamic. So let's try that. Right? Fun diminished chord, fully diminished chord. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Same thing again. 1. The same thing. Use and be very intentional about the decrescendo. Use the decrescendo and be very intentional about it. So when you have Christe eleison, you really want to focus on how your voice controls the decrescendo. Let's do that section again. From bar 71, Christe. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Loud. Decrescendo. And then basses. Right? It's so beautiful. Sorry, tenors, I forgot your note there. Now, basses at J. This is bar 75. You really are the melody. Everybody else is in response to you. So if you're a bass, I would actually move you up to mezzo forte. That strong. Because not only is it solo line, but we want it to be sustained. So Christe, Christe, right? Really, really beautiful. So everybody else. Each one of those is what we call sospiro. Sospiro in Italian means sigh. And each of one of these is like a little sigh. Christe, Christe, eleison. And you just relax. And then those last eleisons that we sing at the very end are just almost like the last breaths of that refrain. It's an echo of this last section right here. So bar 75, the basses with a nice full sustain leading us through, tucking us in, and everybody else gently, gently sighing and closing our eyes. Starting from bar 75. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Continuing on, 1, 2, ready, and go. And go. Off. And go. Sustain. Now, before we do a sing through and then go into our break, I want to start from the very beginning and just remind ourselves how we sustain the long pitches for this. And so remember that, Julia, for instance, the debate for this is whether you conduct this in 4 or 8. And it is very clear that he's conducting it in 8. Because he is going tom pa. He's going tom pa ta. You can hear it, right? And so the same thing for us. It's all about the subdivision. All about that bass. No, all about the subdivision, right? So ta 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 ta. 80 is ta 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 ta. A. Ta, ri, ta, da, te. So you want to think the subdivision. Ta, da, 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 ta, da, 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 ta, da, 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 ta, da, da. So from the beginning. Okay. call this closed chord voicing because everything is really tight. You're singing literally every pitch of the chord from low D to the high A. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and and 3 and off and then of course the music begins again. And just, to me, it feels like the ethereal nature that you get from smoke, right? And it's just floating, has a little bit of ebbs and flows, and it just has these beautiful undulations that just naturally occur. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing through the first movement in entirety. I'm going to conduct, and I'm going to put on the recording of the score, and you should try to see if you can watch, as well as how do I do this? Vo. What happened to my foray? Vo. Sorry, let me find my foray. Foray, where have you gone?
Yeah, toggle your screens.
BCCO, COVID-19, perhaps. What happened? Okay. Je pense que c'est ça. Yeah. Here we go. So I'm going to try to do this the way Julia just gave me a hint, which is to maybe just share my desktop. How about that? Does that work? No. Pin myself?
If you go into the share screen window, do you see an advanced tab kind of at the top of it?
No.
No. Okay, you might not have it clicked then. Never mind. Sorry.
No worries. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to... Do you see the spotlight? No, that doesn't work. Okay, any case, let's just sing through this. You might just have a small version of me. Wow, such a beautiful movement. And I think the thing that comes across always, and when you talk about the great masterworks, this is always, always true, is that the more you go into it, the more there is there. The deeper that you dive into the work, the more that you find in it. And even pieces that on the surface seemingly so simple, that something like this has such depth to it, is I think why it's one of our favorites, right? It not only is ethereal and beautiful from the first minute you hear it, but it's also, the more that you look into it, the more you see the music and how it's written, how simple it is, but how much meaning it has into it. And I think it's really special. So we're gonna take a little bit break right now, and then we're gonna actually start looking at the second movement, the offertory. And the offertory starts on bar 1 of the offertory, just in case we make sure we know where we are. It's bar 13. But like I said before, it's much more chant-like than before. So I'm going to try to I actually wasn't highlighted. But if you go back to gallery and let's see, oh, there I can, that's funny. So it's only within gallery that I can remove the spotlight because I have to find myself. But feel free to unmute yourself and join in chat, or go get a drink of water, go to the restroom, go get some wine, you know, whatever, we're in our homes. So feel free to open up the chat, and then we'll be back in 5 to 7 to 10 minutes or something like that. Okay.
Hello, Mary. I see you, Mary. I hope you are well.
I'm well. And you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I wish it were for real.
Oh, yeah, of course, of course.
We're sounding good. I have 2 versions of this, and neither of them have measure numbers. It's frustrating.
You have to write them in, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it's beautiful.
I have it from Derek, and there are measure numbers written in, but he's actually changed some, he changed it a bunch. So
it's just to him.
Well, I have the measure numbers for this one.
Yes.
And I don't think I hadn't written any of the other ones in yet.
Christian sent an email with all the page numbers, the measure numbers. Except there are a couple of discrepancies in the solo for mine. I don't know why, but for all the chorus parts, it meshes with mine. I have this.
Who sent them the list of measures? You can't see me. Who sent the list of measures?
Christian sent an email last week, after rehearsal last week.
Oh,
thank you.
You also sent it today.
Okay, good. We're a quiet group.
Strange.
It's wonderful to see how many people have stayed in and are hanging in.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
Hanging is the right word.
It's a little strange not hearing anyone else besides myself.
Yeah.
Who better?
I don't know. The only way I'll find out how close I am is when I actually go to my own piano later.
Well, if you're going to start
That'll be
testing
the moment of truth.
good God.
Lawrence, what were you doing in Utah? Were you just vacationing?
I was a refugee from is what I really was.
So what did you do there?
Well, we went to Zion and
Oh,
then
great.
we went to Escalante, along the Highway 12. So we did some hiking there along the Escalante River and in Bryce Canyon. It's beautiful country.
It's gorgeous. What was the heat? What was the heat like?
It was not as bad as yesterday and today here.
Great.
At least it didn't seem so. Of course, the sun really beats on you.
For sure.
You have to have a hat and everything.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good getaway. We really had to do it, I think.
That's wonderful.
Did you see a lot of other people?
In Zion, there were really a lot of people.
Yeah.
But in Bryce, it wasn't so bad. And then, of course, as you get deeper into Mormon country along Route 12, there's not many people at all. So it's kind of nice.
What is it about their religion that keeps them away from being outside? They're inside drinking. They're inside hiding their alcohol.
It's too
I'm not hiding it at all.
Too hot for the funny underwear.
An awful lot of nice people there. So it's really great.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of alcohol, I'll be right back.
Where did you stay?
Well, in Zion Park, we stayed in Springdale, the town right outside the gate. And then in the Bryce area, we stayed near a town called Escalante. There's a bed and breakfast there that's really nice, out in the middle of nowhere with cows and cats and dogs, millions of birds. It's really nice. Yeah, yeah. Very unspoiled country. Very, very well cared for country. That was really nice to see.
That must have been quite wonderful. So many
It really
birds.
was. As you can tell, I was really impressed by it.
Did you go to the top of Zion to the creek?
To what they call the Narrows?
Yes.
We went up there. Is that Lynn?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, hi. I recognize your voice. We went up there, but I tell you, there were so many people there. It was really kind of a downer. So we went and then we left right away. Yeah, it was just amazing how many people were there. I'm not sure we'll go to that park again.
Do you think it was just a lot of people trying to get outdoors?
Yeah, desperate to get out.
Well, there were a lot of Californians.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Lots of Californians.
You think they drove out there or flew?
I think they drove.
Oh.
You saw a lot of cars with California plates.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And
it
RVs.
figures, doesn't it? It figures that people would try to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, RV rentals and sales are way up.
Sorry?
RV rentals and sales are up like 80%. So.
Oh yeah, right.
We're all getting out of Dodge.
Yeah. I think
I guess must be the only safe way to do it right now.
Yeah.
Let's come back.
Maybe people are looking to escape from the smoke.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of, one of my favorite locations, Meadowood in Napa, just burned down today. It was, it's ripping through St. Helena, Angwin. There's many, many wineries. Some of the top wineries are all around that area. So it's pretty terrible right now. But in any case, so we're looking at the second movement of the offertory. And there is this debate sometimes when you hear a recording first or you look at the music first. And what I want to do is actually look at the music first before we actually go into listening to the recording to see how it sounds. Because when you listen to a recording, it's the viewpoints of those performers, as conductor, the soloist, etc. And it oftentimes will impart a default way to listen to the music. And what you want to do is actually let the music speak to you yourself to really figure out how it sounds and everything. So let's go look at the offertory right now from bar 1. And the first things that you see is that unlike the first movement, the introit and requiem, it is incredibly much more complex. Instead of just big fat whole note to start chord, single note, and then you have 4 quarter notes in the first movement. Here you have all these 8th notes, dotted rhythms, the chords, you can't even tell if there's a chord, if there's lines, what's going on. There's a lot of accidentals. And so you start just playing from the beginning and you see, okay, what's this all about? And right away, we can tell this is music that's not what we call homophonic. Homophonic means that there's chords. You hear chords like a chorale. Every voice part has the same rhythm in homophonic music. And as a result, you have chords that just line up one on top of the other. Homophonic music is what we start the movement with, start the piece with. Everybody's singing the same rhythm. But this is very much not the case. Every voice part not only does not come in at the same time, but they have slightly different things. So you hear one voice part at the bottom. Holds for a little while, repeats, and then changes. You have a middle voice. After the first voice comes in, they have a duet. And then a third voice comes in. Before you get music that starts to sound like the chord is starting to rhyme. And so this music, if you think about it, like that church that we just saw in the very beginning where its premiere was, that you hear these wisps of melody, that you hear these little snippets of what might be a melody. It's not even a melody at the beginning before it comes in. It's beautiful, beautiful soft start, unlike the first movement, where the first thing you hear is a fortissimo single resounding note. Pom! And then the chorus emerges from that. This is individual voices coming together, one after the other. And you come in, and altos and sopranos, why don't you just join along with the altos in the first line? And tenors, basses, why don't you join along with the tenors at this first line? But you have these 2 voices that just weave in and out from each other. I'm going to start in bar 6 where the voices are, and just listen to what the voices sound like together. Okay? So bar 6, where the voices come in. Right? You see that? And it continues on. But I mean, the voices even cross. The lower voices, the tenors and basses in our case, because we just want everybody to sing, actually sing higher than the sopranos and altos at some point. They literally are weaving in and out of range. So when you sing this is literally pure horizontal music, just like chant. Why don't we have everybody sing, sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses, sing the alto line at the beginning. Okay, so O Domine, you wouldn't take a breath there because that would break up the line. Domine Jesu Christe ex gloriae. And where the breath is naturally where you would take a normal breath after running out of that line. So don't take a breath. Let's sing, everybody sing that at the beginning. Why don't we sing it on nu for now? Nu, nu. Actually, not nu, just ooh, with no consonant whatsoever. Ooh, just very gluey. 1, 2, and And this time, we're going to do it like a vocalese. I want you to glide from pitch to pitch. I want you to really glissando all over the place as if the pitch itself was just as transparent and flexible as the rhythm, okay? Ready? 1 and Go on. Why don't we try everybody singing the tenor line? So basses, tenors, altos, and sopranos, starting from bar 7, it's almost the same range. Just a little bit lower, but almost the same range. Basses, you can sing down the octave if you want. All right, here we go. 1 and go. Now remember, room, right where we stopped, is where the phrase ends. So even though it looks like it continues on immediately, there actually is a tiny break there because you see not only does the orchestra come in again, but the sopranos and altos, rather the alto line, sings duet finally. And finally, we sing with the same rhythm. So let's sing these 2 lines together. And I really want you to think not of the text. We're going to sing only anu. You can even glissando if you want. But the idea is the feeling of these tendrils weaving in and out. Have you ever seen videos of like pea shoots or whatnot sort of wrap themselves around the whatever you call it, the poles, the poles that they climb up? Trellis. If you see them going up the trellis like that, sort of have a winding nature to it. Okay, let's try this together. Both voice parts together. Pick whatever voice part you want. Basses, if you want to sing the alto line, fine, great, whatever. But let's pick one of those 2 voices and sing those 2 voices weaving in and out. Right? There's the first pitch for the alto line. This is the first pitch for the tenor line. Starting with the alto line, bar 6. 1 and ready, go. Tenor. Go on. Absolutely beautiful music. Now, just like we did last week, why don't we actually put the text in, but we're going to add one element at a time of the text. So this time, instead of adding any consonants, we're only going to sing the vowels. O, 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 mi, e, o, mi, e, o, mi, e. See if you can sing it. I'm singing the alto line. It's a little high for me, but try to sing the line, maintaining that idea of glissando through the notes, maintaining that idea of sostenuto, of sustain, of connection that comes through. Do not let the words or the changing vowels interrupt our flow. Let's try again. Same place. Bar 6, alto line starts here. Tenor line starts here. Feel free to switch them as long as you get the change of notes, right? I'm sorry, change of vowels with maintain the legato. Ready? 1 and go. Going on. Now, in the past, if you've been a member of BCCO for a while, sometimes we talk about music that is sort of like wind chimes. It's got a randomness, the rhythms are all over the place, and there's little points of light, little bit of spark and all that kind of stuff. This is not like that. Even though the rhythms are different between the two lines, the feeling is very different. Instead of sparkly and precise, it is diffuse, it is flexible. And so it has to have a very, very different feeling to it. Now, when we go on to bar 19 and 20, we change to the next pitch up. Instead of, it's wait, is that a typo? You see, it's almost exactly the same. It is exactly the same. I think there's a typo on the top, page 7. I'm sorry, bar 17. Those should all be D sharps there too. Okay. There should be all D sharps in the tenor line. So obviously it's tied to D sharp, but the next note should also be D sharp too. On libera, the bay of libera should also be a D sharp. Okay, so let's go to B and rehearse, so bar 19, and sing this line. This time, why don't we add the consonants, even though the notes are the same, but O, Do, Mi, Ne, not O, Do, but O, Do, Mi, Ne. Actually, let's just speak it for a second. O, Do, Mi, Ne, Jesu Christe. Making the consonants as small as possible and not interrupting the line. Let's speak it from the alto line, starting on bar 19. So we all do the same text together. But O Domine Jesu Christe Rex Gloriae. That's hard to read in my copy, so it might be in yours too. But it's libera, like liberate. Libera animas defunctorum de ore leonis. Right? Ne absorbea tatarus. Okay, save us from the mouth of line. Okay, so O Domine. Starting from bar 19, I will count off, and we're going to just speak the rhythm with smoothness and connectiveness, and the tiniest of consonants. Sometimes we want really big consonants. Sometimes we want really tiny consonants. Here we go. 1, 2, and go. O Domine Jesu Christe Rex Gloriae libera animas te functorum de ore leonis and ne absorbea tatarus. Remember those ending consonants for tatarus in bar 22 and leonis in bar 20. We're going to put on the beat. I don't remember what the recording says, but we'll try them on the beat for now. Okay? So let's try that with music. Bar 19 and 20. And then we'll switch off to the ending. I'm going to skip a little bit, even though we're right at the baritone solo. And we're going to give it to Julia before we sing through the end. We won't do sectionals today, Christian, I think. It'll be easier to just do this like this. But let's do bar 19, all 4 voice parts, soprano, alto on the top, bass and tenor on the bottom. O Domine, opening pitch for the alto soprano. Tenors with basses. Basses, feel free to again sing to the bottom of the octave. It's just as beautiful like that too. Those sopranos, I might not have you sing it up the octave. That might be a little bit out of character, right? And 1, 2, and 3. And then you see, we're not going to sing this part right now, but you see, we move up another step. But then the basses come through with the music of the beginning. It's the alto line that was sung at the beginning. And you see this. This is utterly gorgeous because it looks like we start at one key, we move up to another key, and then it looks like we move up to the third key, but what we've really done is come back around full circle. So when the basses as a voice part come in, we have come back and they sing the beginning again. And it's just as glorious, beautiful. And then you hear it sounds so simple. It just sounds like people singing random notes, you know, in a beautiful little melody. But to see the craft of this and how it comes across is absolutely gorgeous. So if you turn to bar, let's say 31, the baritone has a nice little solo that happens in the middle of this. Remember that this movement was one of the ones that was added later. The Liberame Domine, the movement, I think it's number 6, and this movement were added later. So the baritone soloist in general was actually added later. So if you turn to bar 35, and you know, you can see this baritone has a beautiful solo. We'll sing through this at some point because why not? But when you come back to back to the beginning music at bar 77. Bar 77. Now you have all 4 voice parts. Sopranos have not been singing for this entire time. Well, in normal cases. And this time you have the basses lead us off with the melody. And then the altos. And you have this gorgeous 4/4-part harmony that start to emerge. And you see not as many accidentals anymore. And so the music becomes a little bit more literally harmonious, and the voice parts start really singing together. It's this beautiful, beautiful storytelling of the voice parts over the course of this movement. So I'm going to hand it over to Julia, who's going to look at this section, starting from bar 77. And we'll go, Julia, probably about 10 minutes or so we can actually sing through the beginning of this afterwards. So actually give 12 minutes to 8:52.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so as I kind of want to keep along the same vein where we kind of discover this without the recording, but as you know, my piano skills are such that I cannot accompany and play all parts together, so we're going to break it down and look at each voice part individually here, and then hopefully when you do sing with the recording towards the end, it'll all fit together nicely. But let's start. I think in my score I have this written as 78, but this is right where the basses come in at when the music returns. So O Domine, let's all read together the basses together, and let's try count singing. So it's very similar to what we did in the first rehearsal with Ming, where we were going no 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 no. So just very like observing every single subdivision. But instead of nu nu nu, we're gonna go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So if you've done this before, this might be familiar. If not, we're basically breaking up the beat into 16th notes. And so we have 1 and 2, and which would be 8th notes. 16th, you add E and A. 1E and a, 2E and a. Let's just do a 4/4 bar together just to practice. Ready? And 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. And previously, I've worked with people who say that you can say 3E and, or you can go TE and, whichever is easiest for you. So basses, let's all sing the bass part in your octave. And let's be very aware of where we place the 16th note so that we're not double dotting this rhythm. And as Ming said too, now we have the return. The basses are singing what the altos sing at the beginning. So we have, we'll start on the and of 3. So we'll go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a off. Let's do that one more time just so that we can practice that, and then we'll keep going. So we'll count through all the rest of the basses have and go through the end of this onto the next page. Here we go. We're taking it a little down tempo so we can just practice, get all the E and A's in there. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a off. And a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and oh, I'm sorry, let's just go right on the libera. So we have 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 4E and I'm getting mixed up myself in all the count singing. Let's go ahead and turn back to, this is pick up to J if you have this. So this is measure 82. My brain is going crazy playing and singing and speaking all of the E and A's. So I'm going to try to sing for you, see if you can continue to do the count singing, because I think it's helpful to keep us all on track. I'm going to continue to play and sing, at least on oo or nu, for us to keep us all on track. So back at measure 82, this is pick up to J. Here's the basses. Everyone singing the bass part together. 1 and 2 and 3. And go. to practice sometimes counting it. I know that Ming was talking in the beginning about how this should be very stretchy and not necessarily very rhythmically precise. But I do know that sometimes when we have dotted rhythms, we tend to double dot them as an ensemble. So it's good to find exactly how much space that those 16th notes take up, because at this low tempo, they're not actually that fast. They do take up space. So let's all sing the bass part together one more time. Now on ooh, seeing if you can connect all of that together. So we'll do the whole thing, basses. Everyone singing along. 1 and 2 and 3. Four and 1 and 2 and 3. Off and go. We'll take now the tenors, but as we do, I want us to also notice a couple of things through the section that we just sang through. So if you look, when we start out, our dynamic is pianissimo, so it's glassy, it's stretchy, it's smoky, as Ming was saying earlier too. But there's no really dynamic change that whole way for that whole first page and a half, where we have just that nice, beautiful, silky texture of that sound. Everyone is pianissimo on their entrances, no matter how much they jump, no matter how much that these lines jump around, everything is nice and smooth. But then looking at letter J, or measure 83, we start to see a crescendo that's written into the soprano part, but all the other voice parts, if you can write that into your part as well. So we should start crescendoing in the middle of J. And you see this giant crescendo into a forte on that beautiful rising section that also falls. And you stay forte through the end of that page. And then when you turn the page, I guess if you're on the same version as me, but looking at 86, you start to take crescendo back to pianissimo. So this does have kind of a very glassy kind of texture immediately, as we begin, but then you crescendo into this louder sound, and then a decrescendo again. But it's a very drastic dynamic contrast, as Ming was talking about earlier too, like this compared to the Duraflé, which is all just glassy the whole way through. This has those kind of dramatic differences. So tenors, let's go ahead and sing through. If you can bear it to count sing, everyone singing along on the tenor part. They start up here. Try to count sing if you can manage it. And we'll go through and look at our parts. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3. Four and 1. It's so beautiful and so sweeping, especially on that when it crescendos into that big forte section. Altos, let's go ahead and take a look at your line, and then sopranos will read through your line, everyone kind of singing everything. And then I think after we finish off looking at everyone's voice parts, we'll have a chance to sing through it. So altos. Here we go, altos. 3 and 4 and go. right where that 8th note is. It was so clear to me singing through at least to the alto line and the way that it rises up to the forte that we have, and the way that, you know, when we come down from the forte, because we're coming down in pitch, the altos and the tenors, it's really easy to think, oh, you know, we're coming down in pitch, let's not be as loud anymore. But I think, you know, the forte continues through that second measure. So I think continue the sound, continue the engagement and the excitement through that measure, and then start to decrescendo only at 86 and not before. I see that Ming has unmuted himself. Want me to run through the sopranos, or would you like to take over now?
No, feel free. Run through the sopranos.
Okay, sopranos, here we go. Right at measure 80, where we start pianissimo to start, and then looking towards the crescendo that happens at letter J. Here we go. 3 and 4 and go. All of the breaths that I took in there were not sanctioned, but stagger breathing, as we must all do alone in our homes on Zoom. So, okay, from there, I will pass it over to Ming so we can all sing this together, all voice parts, and hear what the general sound is.
Okay, so I see that you went, we have the alternate numbering system. Is that why the numbers are off? Because you got, for, I think the score, some scores might have that first half bar as listed as bar 1, which is just half bar. So I started my first bar actually at the first full bar. So we're gonna listen to this recording and sing along with it, not the entire thing. Well, the entire thing, we'll see how far we can get. But again, thinking about the structure while we're thinking it, while we're singing it rather. The idea of that unbroken long line of the idea of chant that we started the rehearsal with, Duraflay, that's really, really unbroken, beautiful, floating quality to it that just sort of weaves in and out of the other voice parts. But then this beautiful structure that sounds a little bit enigmatic at the beginning because we're not sure in the right key or not, but that it actually brings us all the way back around. So when the baritones and basses come in, that it actually restarts the melody again. So everything's as part of a loop, you know, on the third iteration, which is important number. Okay, so this is the recording, and then we will sing along. Orchestra first.
piece.
Ah, beautiful. That's a beautiful solo. But you see, this music is there's sort of a haunting quality to it, and again, even though it comes across as a very tonal piece, there's a lot of oddities in this that make it have this sort of mystical quality to it that I think is really special. And Julia, for the sections that are a cappella, those are usually conducted in 8 often. This is actually a fast recording. But it's really gorgeous. We're going to continue on with the second movement. We are going to do a little bit of the Sanctus again. So those two movements, this movement as well as the Sanctus. And I would listen to a bunch of recordings, but it's a really gorgeous movement. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Christian because what we're going to be doing, I unfortunately have another meeting, but we're going to actually try something. If you're interested in staying for some of our social bits afterwards, we're going to break up, we're experimenting, and I think the goal is this time to actually, oh, it's actually notated here in the chat, break into groups of 10 to 15 people in groups. And so we did a large group before, we did small groups, and so we're going to try medium groups right now. But hope you enjoyed this rehearsal, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ming.
Thanks. Thanks, Patricia.
Bye.
All right, so if you'd like social time, stay for a while. We'll see how many people there are, and then we'll break this up into smaller groups so we can say hello.